Welcome to the Compendium podcast, hosted by Leadership Books. In just moments, our host, Michael Stickler, will be joining us with a very special guest. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you to Michael. He's a 4-time best-selling author, philanthropist, publisher, and highly sought-after conference speaker. His passion is to see life-changing books find their audience. Books that will change your life, change your business, and change your soul. And he specializes in helping authors and business owners achieve publishing success. Won't you please welcome Michael Stickler?
Thank you, Ron, for the great introduction. Folks, today we have two gentlemen that I'm very impressed with, and they've written a great book, really a book that everyone should have a copy of. And these two gentlemen that are with us, authors, Chuck and Charles Lewis. They're co-authors, they're trainers, coaches, they're a father and son team, they're speakers. Chuck, who's a very well-credentialed mental health professional, created a program, or really an approach. He calls it the Lewis approach, or the Lewis approach verbal system. And what he does with the system is he enables people to quickly and effectively solve many of life's problems, including stress, conflict resolution, relationships problems, even domestic violence and bullying. He uses this program, he leads by example with Chuck and Charles, and they've had over 2 generations of lasting, happy marriages spanning over 8 decades between the two of them. Now, Charles came along into this process because he used this system in business for over 40 years. I'm sorry, yeah, Charles did. Sorry, almost got your guys' names mixed up. And Charles is pretty well credentialed himself. He's a graduate from USC, University of Southern California. And as I mentioned, he's used this approach for years and years in his business. So together they wrote this book. The book's called Getting What You Want and Being Liked for It: How to Resolve Conflicts, Problems, and Situations with Anyone and About Anything. So Chuck and Charles, welcome to the Compendium podcast.
Thank you.
Guys, I want to jump right in because I'm so fascinated in what you do. Chuck, just take a minute to kind of explain how you got into this approach that you have. What was the big picture?
Let me tell you what happened. I've been a therapist. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm a psychiatric social worker. And I worked in a psychiatric hospital. Now, what psychiatrists do is they help people confront people. So we're working, and I did the same thing. We were working with this lady to help her confront her husband. And so in one of the meetings, this took months to get her to do this. And what happened in one of the meetings, she confronted one of the patients. But when she finished confronting the patient, he confronted her back. I thought, gee, that's not working out. People express themselves only to get hurt. So I started developing a system where you could confront someone and nothing but good stuff comes back. So that was the beginning of it all. Then I did other research to help people overcome their problems, and mainly to be able to confront someone and nothing but good stuff comes back.
Right.
So that's how I got into the book. That's how I got started.
Well, I got to tell you, Chuck, it's almost too good to be true. Most confrontations, of course, are emotionally charged. That's why they are confrontations. I mean, anything that's really meaningful is going to be emotionally charged. So are we talking about, and this is really for both of you, is this a technique? Is it a way of thinking? Is it a worldview? What is it?
Well, actually, it's a verbal system.
Okay.
What it does, the Lewis approach is a scientifically based verbal system that uses select words that targets the hormones in the body, mainly adrenaline. Because if you do not have any adrenaline, you will not have any stress, you won't have problems, none of that. But people don't know how to use up the adrenaline. So we have words to Now, one of the things to mention, the hardest thing for a therapist or anyone else to do is to get someone in therapy to express their anger. So we have words that doesn't sound like anger, but it is, and it relieves the adrenaline so that they feel a lot better.
That's great. So, Charles, when you were using this in business, how did you use it? What was your approach?
Yeah, well, thanks for having both of us on the show, Mike. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell a quick story of how it started for me, because it goes back to 1982 when I was a junior in high school. And so my dad was working, and I remember I wanted to get Miss Schwartz's English class, and she wouldn't let me in because, you know, you learned a lot, you got good grades. So I went downstairs, I put a dime, back in the day when you put a dime on the telephone, I called my dad. I said, what do I say to get in? I wrote it down. I walked back upstairs. I said the words, and I got into class. And as time went on, yeah. So when the title was Getting What You Want to Be Like for It, it has a practical application to get what you want to be like for it. So that's how it kind of started for me. And as time went on, I started using it in business situations, primarily when it was like conflict related, like somebody had an unrealistic deadline, or an employee was insubordinate, as opposed to going through the classic HR protocols, which we used. If they weren't available, I was able to use the Lewis approach. So for instance, one of the things we talk about is use instructional statements. And this is one of the secrets in the book. And this is what we do a lot of our coaching too. So you would tell the person what to do for you to get your needs met. In this case, to comply, or to be nicer, or to be easier on me, whatever that is. And that's why when we go through the coaching, we have the 3 don'ts and 3 do's, and we go through that process. So that's been my experience as it began in 1982 as a junior in high school, and then through my career in the business world.
So what are the 3 do's and the 3 don'ts?
I love talking about this. Let me just tell you, Chuck. I'll tell you real quick, the 3 don'ts. Number 1, don't ask and don't answer questions. Really hard to do because we do it all the time, but that's one of the things we work in our coaching. So you can be able to do that. We developed a drill called the Simon Says drill in session number 3 of the beginner's class. So we give you the skill to be able to do that. So that's number 1. Number 2 is don't use the words want, need, or please. Don't use the words want, need, or please. And it relates to the adrenaline that Chuck was talking about. And number 3 is don't use the word you as the focus of your message. Like you always do that. People kind of in tune to that. So those are the 3 don'ts. The 3 do's. Number 1, decide clearly and specifically what you want. Decide clearly and specifically what you want, because the more clear it is and the more specific it is, the easier it is to get it. Number 2, use an instructional statement to tell the person what to do for you. Use an instructional statement to tell the person what to do for you. And number 3, right after that, add the words, I'd appreciate that. So it might sound something like this. Mike, arrange your schedule to have lunch with me this Friday at 2. I'd really appreciate that. That's what it would sound like. And that's the 3 do's.
All right.
I just want to mention one thing. You use this when you're under stress, so that's the way you get rid of the stress and the tension.
Yeah, the way you just described that, Chuck, is it has no emotional, no challenge whatsoever to it. And by doing I appreciate that at the end, it's completely disarming. So go back to the first, because I don't have it memorized, the first don't.
The first don't is don't ask and don't answer questions.
All right,
And
that's challenging for me. So what is
very,
that?
very challenging. So you replace the questions with an instruction. So as opposed to, how come you relate to the party? You'd say, tell me why you relate to the party. Now, the question I get from the students, they always say, well, what difference does it make? They relate. Chuck, tell them about the hormones and what that difference is, and why this eliminates stress.
You ask a person a question, they have to think about it.
So wait a minute, guys, before you get too far, move the microphone a little closer to him, because it keeps cutting out on certain words.
Okay, again, when you ask a question, the person has to think about it. When you have to think about it, that's when you have adrenaline.
Okay.
If you say to a person, could you do this for me? They have to think about it. Could I? What is it? But when you say, do this for me, they don't have to think about it. So it does not hit the adrenaline. We have a lot of words that does this throughout your life experience. I learned one time that during my research, this is all researched out, that people develop stress in casual situations. Now, let me just mention one thing. If someone looks at you and just says, you, wouldn't you get suspicious?
Sure.
So that's why we don't want to use the word you.
Yeah.
Essentially,
All right. Okay, there you go. You come back, but for whatever reason, there's an in and out with your speakers, and I don't want people to miss this. So
Yeah.
Want to speak it really loud and clear? Is that good?
Let me see if I move a little closer if that works.
Good now. It's good now. So go ahead.
Okay, so the thing about it is, it's not something that you do something nice for someone or anything like that. The Lewis approach tells the other person how to do things for you. That's why you're asking questions. You want to get something, but you want the person to get your message. Once they get the message to do something for you, they can decide, well, I'll do it or I don't. Generally, if it's very clear what you want them to do, they will do it. And then that causes their body to have endorphins. Endorphins make you feel good. So you can deal with aggressive people and they'll like you at the end of it. Can I
So
give okay.
I'm going to drill into that a little bit more, really just from my own understanding. I'm a fairly autocratic guy, class, style A personality. I've spent my whole life trying to soften that side of me. My whole life I've spent on that. Still, people see me differently. So the idea to say, could you do this for me, opposed to do this for me, feels counterintuitive to that softening side. You know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying?
So add to that, Mike, say, do this for me, I'd appreciate that. It would
Okay.
make my day. I would feel good about that. I'd
Right.
really like that, because that would then soften that. And it does something else too, but that's the way to address that.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. So I've removed it from a question, but then I've also presented, I would appreciate it. It isn't any different. I have a tendency to just say, do this for me. And I don't mean it as the way it comes off, but people go, they get upset and they feel like they're being ordered and directed and those kinds of things.
And they would. And the reason is that's a concept called tapping into a person's desire to please. It's one of the concepts we teach. So you use because I'm more the technician of the Lewis approach. So you use instructional statement followed by desire to please. So that tells the person what to do, uses up your adrenaline so you have less stress, doesn't hit the other person's adrenaline, and wipes away any guilt of you commanding them, because it's a desire to please. Because people want to please other people. They want to make people happy, as long as it's not at their expense.
Right. That's an excellent approach.
Can I mention one thing? See, a lot of people are concerned about what the other person thinks about what they're saying. And a doctor will tell you there's good stress and there's bad stress. What we've decided is and concluded is bad stress is when you're trying to solve someone else's problem. Good stress is when you're trying to solve your own. Now, if you say, I don't want to tell this person, do this for me because they're going to confront me, you're thinking about solving their problem. All you think about is your own problem. Because if you tell a person, do this for me, they say, I don't want to do anything for you. I heard that. Be nicer to me and do it anyway. It doesn't hit their adrenaline, so they're more apt to do it.
Right.
Because they know what you want them to do. So we don't just say nice words. We say specific words that hits the hormones. If you don't hit that hormone right, it's not going to work. Now, a lot of times why people don't want to say it that way, I don't know if we're going to talk about this, because there's an old brain, which is a fight brain. That's all it does, fight.
Right.
There's a new brain. See, the fight or flight comes out of the old brain. And the new brain is a problem-solving brain. You can make plans, you can negotiate, you can solve problems, out of the new brain. But most people are in the old brain. I don't like what you said. Well, so what? Well, I'm going to tell you what, if you do that again, I'm going to do this to you. Well, you just try it. See, and that's where it works.
Right.
Because they're in the old brain. So to stop the person says, I'll do this, you say, hold it. Tell me why you said that. Bam. You used up your adrenaline and hit their endorphins.
Right.
Excellent. So it's specific words you say. Now, what we're talking about, I'm just mentioning this quickly. What we're talking about is the new development that we have. But all of this is in the book because we tell you the words to say, but we've advanced it to where we can now tell you the other parts of it.
Right.
So you stay focused.
So most of the people that are listening to this right now are going to be business executives, leaders. How is this, and I'm not going to say everyone, So, but let's just say audience, 75% business leaders, executives. How could they best use this book, both in their own leadership style as well as in the people that they lead?
Well, one thing is you don't change yourself.
All right, go back. We lost you again on the recording just a little bit. So,
Well, first place, you don't change yourself. You can't change yourself. I can tell you reasons why you can't, but you can't change yourself. So you can see, you have to see yourself as perfect or see yourself as good being you. You can't, all of your life experience and all that stuff is what you're going to be. And so if you try and change it, you're going to be under stress. And they're going to pick up the stress. So the main thing we want to do is leave the stress out. And when you set out and tell your employees, do the job this way, and they say, well, no, I don't think it would work. I understand that. Work it out to do it the way I'm telling you. Tell me that you will do that. I'd appreciate it. See, you're still giving them a command, but it doesn't sound like one.
Yeah, and in terms of my using the Lewis approach in 30 years in the business setting specifically, the best way to use it for me was just as a tool. Because like Chuck just said a few seconds ago, that you're perfect being you. That's one of the concepts we teach. We also teach that the other person's perfect being them. So what difference does that make? Well, that means you focus on getting your needs met, the title of the book, getting what you want to be in life for, not changing yourself or somebody else. So the way that I would recommend an executive use it is use it as a tool. When do you use it? When you need it. So for instance, you have an issue with, let's say you're doing a supplier, you're renegotiating a supplier agreement. Use it to reduce, decide what I want, tell them what to do, add words, I'd appreciate that. Or let's say you have a problem with an employee, same thing, and it goes beyond HR. And the other thing, that's a secret hidden thing that I talk about for business executives is at home. Because when I was in business, I was traveling to Chicago and I was doing inventories and in New Orleans and so on, that put stress on the relationship at home. So guess what? I used the exact same Lewis approach at home. It was beautiful. So I only needed to learn it one time. And using it one time, I could apply it to everything. And so the idea is, so if your wife or husband, depending on who you are, says, well, I don't like, you're never home, you're always working. I say, well, go into that more. Tell me why that's bothering you. And they said, tell me what you'd like me to do. Let me do this for you. I notice I don't ask and answer questions. I have them do the work. I give them instructional statements. And the key is when I use those instructional statements, it uses up the adrenaline automatically. And that eliminates the stress. So the idea is it's really twofold. Number one, you will get what you want to be like for it, provided the person can do it, right? It doesn't work miracles because people have free will. We teach the people can say no. They're entitled to that, just like we are. God makes free will. We do the same thing. But you make it clear on what you want. And that's fair. So now the person can either do it or not, but you don't give them choices you don't want them to make. So that's how I would use it as a tool in the business setting and also at home.
So let's talk about teenagers. There's all in the modern world, there's a confrontation with teenagers about everything. One of the things I did with my kids, trying to get them to put clothes in the hamper. All right. So you can demand, as a father, you can demand, put those in the hamper. Okay. Quit throwing them on the floor, put them in the hamper. Repeat, and it usually just drives to a confrontation. The other thing that I did, and tell me if this is along the lines of what you're talking about here, is I walked in and said one day, I think your clothes hate you. And they go, why? And I said, because every time you try to put them in the hamper, they climb out and run away. And they looked at, and he looks at me and he goes, all right, I get your point. And so there was no confrontation in there. There was no adrenaline. The behavior didn't improve dramatically because they're teenagers, but it was, I felt as a parent it was necessary to teach them those kinds of things. Make your bed, clean up your room, put your stuff in the hamper, all those kinds of things. Is that what we're talking about, to eliminate the adrenaline from a confrontational conversation?
Yes, to eliminate adrenaline altogether. Because when you have adrenaline, your old brain is going to kick in and it's going to do the fighting. You won't even know it. So that's why we use specific words. We tell you the words to use. It's not like you have to make them up. Later on, as you get into the approach, you can begin to see which words work. What it is action verbs. The action verbs give direction. It's very clear. Come over here and sit in the chair. It's very clear. But if I say, why aren't you sitting in the chair? It's not clear. And that creates adrenaline when they don't know what to do. The unknown creates the stress. Now, when we did this, the reason we started the book is because people had problems and they come and say, well, how do you deal with this? And they said, well, wait, let me write this down. So we did this for quite a while. So we decided, well, let's put it in a book. So when you look at that book, it's got everything you could deal with in there. And we give some examples that you can start using. All you need to do is change the name of the person and whatever the situation is, change that, and then use those words and it will work. You don't need to know about the old brain and new brain and all that. It automatically is there. So that's how that works.
And Mike, in that, with the example about the child with the clothes, this is what we teach in our class. So you want to use the 3 times rule. And interestingly enough, our intermediate students sometimes miss this. So you tell your child, put the clothes in the hamper. I'd appreciate that. Remember that desire to please. Well, I don't want to put them in there. I heard what you said. Do it anyway. Tell me you put the clothes in the hamper. That would mean a lot to me. That's the second time. Well, why should I put my clothes? Jenny didn't have to put her clothes in there. I hear what you're saying. Hold your question. Do this for me. Make me happy. Put the clothes in the hamper. That would make my day. Now you've told me 3 times, because the issue is a lot of times people don't hear you the first time. They're thinking about the Super Bowl. They're thinking about their test tomorrow. They don't hear you. So you got to use a 3 times rule. And then once you do 3 times rule, if they're not doing it, something's in their way. And so we have something called HT. Tell me what's getting in the way of you doing this for me, because I know they want to please me. Everybody wants to please everybody. So from the technical side, that's the thing. Chuck is the master. He's the captain. And when we do these coachings on Zoom just like this is what we do. He's the master. He created it. I'm the drill sergeant. Okay, let's rehearse. Let's go. They're going to practice this. So when they end the call and they go out, they're able to do it, whether it's in business or their wife or their children, whatever that is. And that's why this is not therapy. This is a tool. This is something you do to get measurable results. And that's why I personally really like that, not having a psychology background.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chuck.
I was just going to mention this. We're talking about teenagers and children. It works there too, because what happened was a practical thing. We talked with this doctor. She's been working with us, and she really likes what we do, because if this could be like psychiatry, but it's not. It helps your whole well-being. And so she is impressed with us, because when Charles worked with one of her patients, he got better in a lot of ways. I don't know if we're going to talk about this later. Well, one of the examples I want to point out, she had one of her workers in the office had a child that didn't want to do her violin practices. She says, I don't want to do this. And so we talked to her, and this is basically what we told her to do. Tell your daughter, do this for me. Practice your violin lessons and make me happy. Do that for me. So the next time she called back, the daughter was practicing her violin lessons happily.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, there's other situations like that. But it's the words that you put together that are action verbs. And the instructional statements, when you say instructional statements, is as clear as possible, the instruction you give. For example, you say, George, do this for me. Go in the kitchen, go to the cabinet, get a mug, walk over to the coffee pot, pour some coffee in about halfway, then put 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of cream in there, stir it up and bring it to me. I'd appreciate that. Now you probably can remember what I told you, because all those sentences started with an action verb.
Right.
And so it's easy to do. It doesn't demand, it doesn't confront. It does confront, it does all that, but it doesn't look like it. So you'll feel good after you get the coffee.
Yeah, that's that. For me, it's going to take some practice, not asking it as a question, because I would say, would you or could you?
Yeah.
Go make some coffee and follow through the directions like that.
Yeah. Let me just.
So in the stress level, though, when you ask a question, it increases your stress and the other person's stress. So what we're talking about is eliminate stress for everybody. And it's not a big deal, right? I mean, you could ask a question, but if you have repeated questions, like Mike, well, where is your office? And when did you start doing this? And what kind of shoes do you have on right now? And what kind of car do you drive? You get pissed off. Yeah. So the idea is we're the technicians. We eliminate the stress to go right to what you want to get to. So you can ask questions. That's fine. I ask and answer questions all the time. But whenever I want to get what I want, or when somebody's threatening me or challenging me or like saying, oh, you can't do this, I turn on the Lewis approach. And when I'm done, I put it away. And that's what I like about this. I don't have to change who I am. I'm Charles Lewis, and I can ask all questions and ask what, need, and please in you. But whenever I want to get what I want to be like for it, I turn on the tools, and when I'm done, I put them away.
Well, gentlemen, this has been great. Tell the listeners a little bit about your book and the courses you offer, the consulting. Tell us a little bit about your larger business model.
Yes. So our book is called Getting What You Want and Being Like for It, How to Resolve Conflicts, Problems, and Situations in Anyone About Anything. We have a website. It's www.lewisapproach.com. That's LEWISAPPROACH.com. And you can get the book. We have that. We also, what I really recommend is taking the coaching. We have coaching on our website. We have our specials we do every periodically. On the website, the coaching, it's just like this on Zoom. It's one-on-one, either one-on-one or me and Chuck with the person or a group. And they're normally like $300, and we have the Valentine's special for $200. So if you contact us, you can get that. So it's really good. That's what I really recommend. And also the book comes with the coaching as well. So that's what we offer. And then the beginner's class is 4 sessions. In fact, we have 2 new students starting today and tomorrow. It's once a week. It's either recorded or not. It's up to you. And then after the 4 sessions, you graduate from beginner's class and you go intermediate, 4 more, and then you become an advanced student. And so the idea is you can drop off at any time. And after you've gone through advanced, you can basically go on maintenance. And so we've had some people we haven't talked to in years because they've graduated from the course. But it's a new skill you have. So now if you have a situation, like we had somebody that was at a New Year's Eve party and they had a problem with their father. And so they had this tool they could use on their own because they took the class. So that's what we offer.
Great. Gentlemen, I appreciate the 2 of you, Chuck and Charles. This was a very fascinating session. You can get Chuck and Charles's book right here. Just click on the link right below. Wait a minute, right below. Or you can go to their website, as they mentioned, either one, and we would love to get a book in your hands. Guys, I appreciate your time today. I certainly believe tremendously in what you do. Every time we have had a conversation, you challenge me a little bit in my interpersonal skills, and I like that a lot. So thank you very much. And folks, until next time, of course, the Compendium podcast is aired every Monday, Wednesday. You can catch us right here on this channel, wherever you've seen us. And we'd be happy to introduce you to another incredible, life-changing author. Until next time, may God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you for joining us for today's broadcast. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And be sure to visit us online at leadershipbooks.store. There you'll find the works of some of the finest thought leaders today. And be sure to tune in here each week to gain even deeper insights from one of those leaders on the Compendium podcast.